A brand helps clarify and identify who you are talking to, and what message you are trying to convey. And this is in the Quran, Sunnah, and Seerah. Branding and Islam are intertwined. And if you look through the Quran and the Sunnah and the Seerah, you find many connections between branding, design, and the Quran and Sunnah and Seerah, in the way that Prophet ﷺ did things, commanded things, established things. You see it very, very clearly. The Prophet ﷺ, in addition to being a messenger and a prophet and a husband and a father and a statesman and so on, from our creative side, we also see him as a divinely guided brand strategist. And subhanAllah, there are many moments in the seerah and many verses in the Quran and many ahadith that sort of focus on these particular branding points. So for example, one of the examples is from a brand touch point, where your brand comes into contact with the customer, the user, the audience. We call these brand touch points. For example, if I go to Turkey and I experience every single Turkish person, that gives me an indication and an experience and a perception of the country. If I go to Malaysia, if I go to Qatar, how I experience the people, these are touch points, it gives me a perception of the country. So the Prophet ﷺ, he really emphasized this a lot. The name of the brand obviously is something that's also very important as well. And the Prophet ﷺ, he also did this as well. So for example, when he made hijrah, migration from Mecca to, at that time it was called Yathrib, and obviously he came to establish Islam there, and it's a new way of life, and it's a city that's reinvented. He changed the name of Yathrib. So he changed it to Madinah. So this is a sunnah of his, obviously, that the name of the brand is very important and strategically chosen as well. He also taught us about brand management as well. So how to manage the perception of your brand. So for example, at the time, the hypocrites, they did many nasty things to the Muslims, and the Prophet ﷺ, he refused to do anything to them, and he said, I do not want people to say that Muhammad kills his companions. So he's trying to preserve the brand, and he's trying to manage the brand, the perception of the brand, and realize something profound in this hadith. He didn't say, I don't want people to say that I am killing my companions. He said, I don't want people to think or to say that Muhammad is killing his companions. And that shows that he took himself out of his person and he spoke about himself in the third person. So it wasn't him himself, he pulled himself out and he's seeing how Muhammad is being perceived. And that's how we manage brands today. How do people perceive our brand from us looking at it from the outside and not being in our own bubble? As far as the positioning, brand positioning, the Prophet ﷺ, in multiple ahadith, he would always say, be different from the Jews, be different from the Christians. For example, when he found out that they fast the day of Ashura, the day that Musa alayhi salam was saved by Allah, he said, if next year comes, I'm going to fast this day and an additional day as well, to differentiate ourselves from other nations as well. And as far as identity goes, on a community level or on a ummah level, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he changed the qibla from Jerusalem, which was also the qibla of the Jews, he made it now Mecca, and that was very unique and distinct for the Muslims. And even today, when anyone sees the Kaaba, they all know that this is the qibla of the Muslims. It's the identity of the ummah. The Prophet ﷺ, he would say, for example, be different from the mushrikeen, grow your beards and trim your moustache as an individual identity. And that's why you'll find that if you see a Muslim man, you can see very distinctly that that's Muslim. He can't be confused with anyone else. And obviously the women in their hijab as well, this is also an identity as well. So we're meant to be distinct. He wants us to stand out. He wants us to have our own identity. Part of branding is a logo. And obviously you see every company, every organization, have logos, and logos are very important. It's surprising to think that the Prophet ﷺ also taught us the science of logo design. And you'll find that, on his ring that says, Muhammad Rasulullah, this was his identity. And the logo, it's just that. It's to identify the brand. So it's not necessarily supposed to tell the whole story and the history and everything. It's just meant to, in the most simplest form, identify the brand. So the Prophet ﷺ, you realize on his seal, he had Muhammad Rasulullah. That was his identity, that was his logo. And an effective logo is not just simple, but it has a message or it has a concept behind it. And the Prophet ﷺ, what he did in the seal was something profound. He didn't write Muhammad at the top and then Rasul and then Allah. He flipped it and he put Muhammad, Rasul, Allah, so Allah's name is above his. And this is out of adab with Allah and saying that Allah comes first and then the messenger. The audience in a brand is very crucial. And many strategies that get put into the brand strategies, are based on the audience, the target audience, their attributes and so on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He teaches us this in the Quran. And this is made very clear in the difference between a surah that was revealed in Mecca and a surah that was revealed in Medina. So you'll find in Mecca, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would say, or would address saying, Ya ayyuhan nas, Ya bani Adam, or Ya ayyuhal insan, which is, O mankind, O children of Adam, O man. So He's addressing the whole of humanity. And then when Islam was established in Medina, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now had target audiences. So for example, He addresses the people that He wanted as Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe. So now is a target audience, and the message was specific for that target audience. And He'll say, Ya ahl al-kitab, O people of the book. And the message was specifically for them. Ya ayyuhan nabi, O Prophet. He's talking specifically to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So this shows us that, having audience and segmentations is a part of having an effective brand. Brand identity is something that's very crucial and important, not just in Islam, but in the world. For example, when you see, people walking around with orange, wrapped in the orange fabric, these are Buddhist monks. And when you see people walking with the curls and the black caps and the big beards, these are Jewish. And for example, when you see the Muslims walk around with the cap, the beard and the trim mustache, these are Muslims. They have an identity. And you find companies and organizations and institutes and peoples and nations, they also have identities too. So for example, if you see a car that has the 3-star logo, that's Mercedes. And if you see the red box shape with the plus, with the play symbol, this is YouTube. And even to the point where sometimes, the shape of a product, for example, like the bottle, the shape of the cola bottle, this is Coca-Cola, even if you don't see the word Coca-Cola on it. So these are identities or logos that you can identify and know the company, even if you don't see the name. Other examples of this is, for example, like the Turkish flag. The Turkish flag is very distinct. If anyone sees a Turkish flag, they know it's Turkey. But for example, if you look at the color of the Turkish flag, it's red. Why red, and why was red chosen? This symbolizes the color of the blood of the shuhada. And that shows that they chose that color with a purpose, with a reason. There's a reason why they chose red and not green. If you look at the Israeli flag, what color is it? It's blue. And why blue and why the 2 stripes? These are the 2 rivers. And if you look at the war criminal, all the photos that he's in, if you notice the color of his tie, it's blue. In other words, wherever he goes, he wants to push this blue agenda, this blue color. He wants the internet, he wants everything to turn blue. And if you look at it, this is actually ihsan, but in fasad, in corruption, using it for bad. As an ummah, we should be doing ihsan, but in the truth and in justice. Then on the other hand, when you look at the Palestinian flag and the honor that it brings when you look at it, and the colors that are there, the green, the black, the white and the red, it's very distinct, and everyone wants to paint everything these colors. You realize, for example, when the internet banned using the Palestinian flag, the creative people, they said, well, hold on, okay, we can't use the flag, but if we're going to use the color, like the war criminal used in his tie, what's green, black, white and red? Watermelons. And that's where the whole concept of watermelons came about. And this is something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran. He mentions, and in this book of guidance for humanity, He mentions different colors. And if He mentions colors in there, in this book of guidance, that must mean that it's powerful and that it's important. And He's trying to get our attention to use these. There's a psychology behind colors and why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose different colors for different things. And He mentions their colors in the Quran as well. So for example, if you take the color yellow, it's a very sort of, motivating, inspiring color. It's a happy color. It's nice to look at. It's pleasant to look at. Sunshine, when you draw the sun, it's yellow. It's a happy feeling color. It feels nice when you look at it. So you'll find, for example, the verse in Surah Al-Baqarah where the children of Israel that asked Musa alayhi salam, tell us what color is the cow, that we need to, slaughter. Musa alayhi salam, he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that it's a cow that's bright, yellow, and He mentions tasurru nadirin. It's pleasant for those that look at it. This little part in the verse, what's it indicating? Allah is saying that anything that's yellow, or this cow that's yellow and it's bright yellow, He's saying that this color is something that's pleasant to look at. So for example, you'll find that, playful and happy and motivating brands, what would be a good color to choose for them? Yellow. And these are evidences from the Quran. And then for example, you have the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith where he mentions about, red, black and white, where he says that Jahannam, the fire was stoked for 1,000 years until it turned red. And then it was stoked for another 1,000 years until it turned white. And then it was stoked for another 1,000 years until it turned black, and it's intensely black. Red, white, and black. If you look at, the signs, the danger signs, what color are they? Red, white, and black. Who told them this? It's in the fitrah. Allah created these colors that they're warning colors, they're danger colors. Even when you cut yourself and you see the blood, what color is the blood? It's red. It's a caution, it's a danger. And this goes to show that there are times where red, should be used. And there are other times that we need to ask ourselves, is, for example, red the best place to be used? For example, sometimes you go into the masajid and it's a house of Allah, you want to feel tranquil like you're in Jannah, and the carpet looks like Jahannam. It looks red, it's all red. So, for example, in Jannah, you've got gardens, you've got rivers beneath your feet, and rivers generally, are blue and green and gardens and so on. Maybe the color of green and blue is better for a carpet of the masjid instead of red. So as you can see, the Prophet ﷺ, came with the message for all of humanity, but really he taught us that the source of everything comes back to the Quran and Sunnah. And if you actually look deep, you'll find the source of everything and a reference for everything in the Quran and Sunnah, even when it comes to branding and design and colors and so on. So again, if it's in there, it shows the importance of it, the power of it, and the impact of it as well. And this is something that we need to understand and embrace and inshallah use to our advantage.